Ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege to invite the Honorable Paul LePage to take the stage here. And we have a student, let's see, it's Cassidy, Parody Cassidy. Would you please come up and please help us with the Pledge of Allegiance?
Oh, great.
Hi everyone, please rise and remove your hats for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. What I would like to do is take a few minutes, and I want to talk about 4 subjects, and then I'll open it up for questions, and we'll answer any questions that you may have. I didn't hear that. Oh. What I'm attempting to do here is now until November of 2016, I am going to travel the state, and I'm going to tell the people of Maine what I believe is needed in Augusta in order to turn the state around and become prosperous. Now, I've been in business for 45 years. I'm not here to be confrontational with you about ideology, because this is not about ideology. I don't make any excuses for being a fiscal conservative, and whatever you are is whatever you are. That's not the point here. The point is to tell you the state of the state today and what I believe is needed to move it forward. And what are the things that have happened since we've been here. And so what I would like to start with is income tax. There are 10 states in America that have no income tax. They happen to be some of the best economies in the country. Wyoming, for instance, has $9 billion in the bank. They have 650,000 residents in their state, and their state is twice the size of Maine. So I hear all these excuses that it's because we're a big state, rural state. They're bigger than we are. They have half the people that we have, but they have a much, much more robust economy. You don't need to go very far to see New Hampshire. Has no sales tax, no income tax, and they're far better, more prosperous than we are. They have a far more aggressive and energetic business community than we do. Alaska, small state. Florida, big state. Nevada, small state. South Dakota, small state. Texas, large state. No income tax in any of those states. They're in the top 10 in prosperity. Per capita income between Maine and New Hampshire is a $12,000 disparity. The per capita income in Maine is 90% of the national average. This is the one that gets me the most. The U.S. average state income tax in this country, the average is 5.5%. The rural average for rural states in America is 5.16%. The average for New England states is 6.63%. That's the average. My last budget was 5.75%. It was rejected, and we're at 7.2%. We're not competitive, folks. And I will tell you, my opponents are saying we're going to increase 3% income tax on people making $200,000 or more. I just want one suggestion for them. You can't tax people in Florida, because those people are gone for 6 months and a day. And so it's about caring for who is here. It's people who are here. I don't care, everybody wants to talk about a minimum wage. How about a career wage? Isn't that more important? Isn't having people making a good, prosperous living and being able to live in Maine and enjoy the beauty of Maine and not have to be dependent on people, very wealthy people from other states to come up and buy up our coastline? It used to be owned by Mainers. I think it's time that Mainers start buying it back. And the only way we can do that if we have really good jobs. And government gets out of the way and let the entrepreneurs and the small business people in this state earn money. Now, I'm not talking about the conglomerates like Bath Iron Works. That's a major international company. I'm talking about the small entrepreneurs in towns. They are the foundation of our nation. They're the ones that create the majority of jobs. Big corporations, they're laying people off everywhere. It's the small entrepreneurs that are growing this nation. So that's what I think about the income tax. Energy, 12th highest in the nation. Airbus went to Alabama. They're going to build their jets down there. The chief executive or the chairman of the board told me they're paying 4.2 cents delivered to their plant in Alabama. That's the energy cost. We are all paying around 15 cents for our residential heating cost. We can't even break 10 cents because we have people in Augusta for 5 consecutive years. 5 years I have been trying to fight the energy battle, and we have lost every year because there are only 2 forms of energy that is acceptable in Maine: wind and solar. What people don't realize is 50% of the time it's dark. You have no solar. So when you take in the winters and the storms, you get 14% efficiency out of solar. Right now we're operating at about 21% on wind. Now I'm fine with that. They're intermittent resources. I don't have a problem with them. What I do have a problem is when you can't buy hydro and you've got an abundance in Canada that we could buy. We could be buying natural gas, and the legislature for 5 consecutive years has said no. But now the horse is out of the barn, and we're going to get it despite the legislature, because Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Maine are now working together to get it here, and it's in process. So by 17, we will have natural gas here. Now, is natural gas the answer to all ills? Of course not. Is it intermittent? I think for the next 15 to 20 years, it is very efficient. It is 50% more efficient than oil. So the CO2 emissions are half as bad. And while we get the technologies necessary for storing electricity from the intermittent products like solar and wind, we have to find the technology to store it so we can use it when we need it, not when it's sunny or when it's the wind's blowing. So all of the above should fit, but the state has taken one approach, and we want just renewables and nothing else. Well, let me give you the facts. Two-thirds of the energy in Maine is renewable. 2/3 of our portfolio is renewable energy, and we are the 12th highest in America. And we are the cheapest in New England. The cheapest. So why is New England not very productive right now? Why has it lost all its manufacturing? Why is everyone going to the southeast, mid-Atlantic states? Is because the governments in those states will welcome capital investment and appreciate it when it comes. What we do is we go out, we campaign to bring people here, we overtax them, and we overregulate them. And then we have a legislator who recently said, well, if you don't like Maine, get out. Well, it's not about the company, folks. It's about the people who work at the companies. It's about having people who have decent jobs. Now, most of the votes in Maine are down in Portland and York. So we can't have mining up north where people are starving. Where unemployment's 20%, we don't want them to have a job. But folks, there are ways to do two things: to have a prosperous economy and be a good steward of the environment. It's a balance. It's finding the balance. The minute you tip the scale one way or the other, you lose out. I'm the first one to say that the smokestacks are not welcome unless they do everything possible to put out the least amount of emissions. If they're here trying to get better and they're providing good jobs, fine. We lost Bucksport. Why did we lose Bucksport? 3 reasons: energy, taxes, high cost of raw material. Why did we lose Old Town? High cost of material. Energy was a secondary factor, but taxes was the number 2 factor. Why did we lose Lincoln? Lincoln was clearly energy. Why is Verso in Jay and Rumford suffering? Energy. And a collapse in the world markets. But what the companies can do is do what they're doing in Woodland. Woodland said, okay, paper, newspaper print is not gonna work. And just pulp is not gonna work. So they're putting in tissue machines. The company is owned by Chinese. They're investing in tissue. I'm not gonna say there's a shortage of tissue, but we could use more. So that's the energy side. My third one is welfare reform. Incidentally, I'm just going to show you this for those up front who can see it. You see all these graphs? The dark one, the black one, that's Maine's energy costs compared to other states around us that we compete with. The third thing is welfare reform. I have a lot of legislators who talk to me about, well, how come you don't care about the poor? Let me tell you something, folks. I care more about the poor than anybody in the legislature because I've been there. I lived it. And poor people don't look out for handouts. They look for ways to be helped to be able to be self-sufficient on their own. My brothers and sisters don't like the handouts. Some do, most don't. There's a very few people in our state that don't want to work. There's a lot of people in our state that don't have the skill set to currently work. So we need to teach them. My method is education and roll up your sleeve and teach them. Some of my opponents say throw money at it and let's go to the cocktail party. Recently, the Pope was here. And his message was exactly what I just told you. You gotta educate, you gotta work with it, you gotta make them inclusive. You gotta make everybody inclusive and help them and work with them. Just throwing money at it doesn't solve the problem because once the money is spent, you're right back to where you started. So I want to have a safety net with the resources, adequate resources to take care of the people with mental illness, the elderly, the disabled, and then our children to have a decent education. And we're failing that too. And fourth, and there are some major successes, but you don't hear about it. We have great successes in some areas of the state in education, but you're never going to read it in the newspaper. But I'll give you an example. Fort Kent High School in 2011, we did an experiment. Took 24 kids out of a lottery, pulled them out of a hat, out of 80 kids in the high school, and we put them in at the University of Maine, Fort Kent. And we said, let's see how far you can go while you complete your junior and senior year of high school. Let's see how far you can go in college. One student graduated with a high school diploma and a year and a half of college complete while he was in high school. 17 kids completed their junior, senior year of high school and the first year of college. And the other 6 kids completed at least a semester of college.
Give it a chance and watch what he can do.
And the whole point is this: it was done with no tuition. It was done through the high school budgets. And I will tell you this: you take a good teacher and an ambitious kid, and there is no limits what they'll accomplish. This year, folks, there were 500 kids in that school, all over the state. So we are doing a lot with very little, and no money for that matter, because it's not always about money. Now people say, I'm a bully, I'm this, I'm that. That's because you're reading newspapers. I'm really a nice guy. Frankly, you cannot go and become the CEO of a state and go along to get along with the status quo if you intend on changing and making things better. It doesn't work that way. If I go to Augusta and I keep my mouth shut and go get along with everybody, go have a glass of wine at the gin mill like legislators do after work, we would be much further off than we are. In the last 4 years, despite having vetoed every budget, I fiscally managed the state. And in the last, since I've been a governor, we've had a surplus of $376 million. You say, well, how come it's not in the rainy day fund? It's not in the rainy day fund because the legislature puts in a thing called cascading. And that means that on June 30th of every year, they look at the balance in the checkbook and they cascade it. The members of the appropriation, there's 13 of them, they take 1/13 of the balance and they spend it on special projects that they have in their areas. So on July 1, the money gets spent. That's not good. Now, another thing I did for education last year, and it was killed by the legislature, I put up a bill that said this: we will borrow $10 million in bonds, we will match it with the money available at the Finance Authority of Maine, and we're going to give interest-free loans to all the kids that either work in Maine with student loans or going to school in Maine. We're going to pay the interest, we're going to give them interest-free loans. And then I had another bill that said, and when they get out of college, if they're working in Maine and their employer pays the student loans off, we'll give them a dollar for dollar credit for that student loan off their income tax. So that you young people in this room, all you would have to do is put the energy into your studies and you would end up with a free education. It never got anything. It died. We're still looking for it. It disappeared. Now those are the 4 issues. Student loan debt is at a point where kids cannot afford to get married, have a family, buy a house, buy new cars. I have a young couple. He's a PA, physician's assistant at Maine Medical in Portland. And his wife's got a master's of physical therapy. They're 28 years old. And what they tell me is, Governor, help us. We pay $1,400 a month in student loans. We can't afford to buy a house because we don't have the equity for the down payment. So we're renting, and that's another $1,500 a month. And then we are both relatively high earners, so you rape us on our income tax. I think we lower the income tax for Maine people, and we increase the sales tax a little bit, and all these out-of-staters that come visit in the summer, we get a little more out of them. because they won't mind. Because Maine's the most beautiful place to go in the summer. They wouldn't be buying up our coastline and our mountains if it wasn't. And I've had them, I know a gentleman that told me, if you got rid of the capital gain, the death tax in Maine, I would be here. He's in this general vicinity, by the way, and he pays about $57,000 a year for coming here 3 weeks a year on property taxes. He says, but I can't live here because if I should die here, you guys are gonna take all the money I've worked for my kids and my family. You're gonna take it, you and the federal government. I don't know about you folks, but I have a family, and I'd like to be able to leave them a little bit when I leave. Gonna be hard on a governor's salary, but I'm gonna try. So that's my point, is we need to look at the Maine people, the families in Maine. And the other thing about the student loan program I had was simply this. Median age of Maine, 44 years old, the oldest state in America. By attracting young people to come to work to Maine, in Maine, and we pay off their student loans, we're lowering the age of our state. We're having more workers in the workplace. We have the highest per capita people on fixed incomes. Now, people say to me, why don't you agree with the minimum wage at $15? Because the largest population in Maine are people on fixed incomes. That's the reason. Now, one lady told me, that doesn't make any sense. I said, well, if you go from $8 to $15, when you go to Dunkin' Donuts, your coffee's gonna go up and your donut's gonna go up. She says, that's nonsense. She says, all they have to do is sell more coffee. You see what I gotta deal with? Now, how many of you believe that? See? So those are very difficult issues. When you have 30% of your population, you know, there's 1.3 million people in Maine, 802,000 people work. The rest, you got kids, incidentally, that's another bad thing in Maine, is we don't let our kids go to work till they're 16. It's one of the oldest ages in the country. Most people around 12, 13, you can get a part-time job. In Maine, if you're 15 and you beg, you might get a permit. But it's 16 by law. It should be. I was about 9. Now, people said, when I said, let's bring it to 12 and let people go, you know, scoop ice cream or things like that, bus tables in a restaurant. And the signs were coming up and the posters were coming up that I was gonna put kids in mine shafts in Africa. I don't wanna do that. But mowing the lawn maybe, raking the leaves, shoveling the sidewalk, I don't see anything wrong with that. I did it. Wash dishes, bus tables. There's all kinds of jobs that kids can do to learn how to work. So with that, that's my story and I'm sticking with it. And so I'll ask questions.
Thank you very much, Governor. We'll start with Tom Walker. Where are you? Raise your hand, Tom.
Over here.
Over there? Okay, I'm going to ask your question. He's from Mount Desert.
Which one I submitted to?
Okay,
Go ahead.
let me read it. Why is your brand of politics so confrontational, Governor?
Well, it's because if you want to make change, if you go along to get along, it doesn't work to make change. I'm really not confrontational. I just say I have my own opinions about things, and I try to good public policy. Now, what I mean by that is, if it helps Maine people, I'm all in. But if you come to me and you say, Governor, I'll go along with your policy if you sign off on my bill. Or, my sister works at Bay College and I want her to have $75,000 of state money, but I don't want to be accountable. I want my name put anywhere. I say no. Get out of my office.
But Governor, I'm not referring to, insider deals or handshakes or backroom stuff. I'm talking about behavior such as yours dealing with marquees.
Sir, let me tell you, I can't talk about it because it's a federal lawsuit. But sir, when this is all said and done, you're gonna praise me for I'm gonna be totally vindicated, because there is the only thing that's been printed by the newspapers about that lawsuit that is correct is they spelt my name right. That is so unbelievable. When the truth gets out, you won't even recognize it. So when you come after my wife or you come after my integrity, expect to get pushback. And it's not going to be pushback until we go to court and it's settled. Believe me, you're not going to say that when we go to court. This morning, I put out a press release today about a senator. And this is what the senator said. The governor's not fit to be governor. He's mentally unstable. We ought to put him at Riverview. So I reacted to it. And tomorrow you're going to see it in the paper. And thank you very much. Maybe I'll be there someday, next to you.
Next question is from Joanne Harris. She wants to know more about Medicaid. And she says, expanding Medicaid is not only the right thing to do, but is an economic driver. Please tell us your objections.
My objection is we expanded Medicaid in 2002. Most people don't understand what's going on with Medicaid. It saddens me. We campaigned through a whole year, try to explain it, but nobody wants to listen. We don't qualify for the 90%. And we don't qualify because we're being penalized because we were generous in 2002 and we expanded. So all the states that have not expanded, they get Medicaid reimbursement up to 130% of poverty. We don't. We get what we get. We only get about 59%, 60%, roughly 60% right now. We have to put the other 40% up. It took me 5 years to dig out of budget deficit. I spent $750 million to hospitals because we weren't paying our bills with Medicaid expansion. We were about $1.3 billion deficit, of which most of it, about not quite half, about 40% of it was DHHS, Medicaid, and Dirigo. Folks, let me tell you, if that was a good deal, I'd be all over it. If they were giving me 100% to 138% of poverty, we'd be all in. But we don't qualify. We have to pay 40%. And it's a no-win situation. Now, and let me give you the facts. In 2002, when we expanded, there was 190,000 people on Medicaid in the state of Maine. When I became governor, and there was 110,000 people uninsured in 2002. When I became governor in January of 2011, there was 354,000 people on Medicaid in the state of Maine and 110,000 people uninsured. The point being that the people that don't have insurance and don't want insurance just simply go to the emergency room and they get coverage. In the state of Maine, you cannot be refused, and so they don't have to pay. The people that went on to Medicaid are everyone that had insurance, but it was cheaper to go get it free from the state. And the state, unfortunately, isn't wealthy enough to take 32% or 30% of its population and pay for their health care. We simply can't tax you enough. And so that's the reason. If we had the same benefit as Alabama, for instance, Alabama was 17% of poverty is the people that were being put on Medicaid in that state. And when they expanded, they went from 17% to 138%, 100% paid by the state, federal government, 100%. And then it goes to 90% in 2017. Folks, we don't benefit. We just expand and we stay where we are. So it is much easier and cheaper for the state and for the citizens to go on the exchange. Because depending on what level of poverty you're at, you can pay as little as $1.74 a month up to $20 a month for your health care through the exchanges. So anybody that telling you you should expand it, they simply don't understand how the system's working.
John McCauley, where are you? He has a question about the northern park idea in northern Maine, or the national park idea rather. He says, given how much Acadia National Park does for MDI, what do you think the impact of such a park in northern Maine would be?
Nothing. And I'll tell you why. Acadia National Park is a beautiful park. It's been here for a long time. And the Friends of Acadia Park are very wealthy people in the summer. They give it a lot of money, and so there's give and take, and there's some return. The land that we're talking about up north is a parcel of land that's 150,000 acres, of which it's not all contiguous, it's not all owned by Roxanne Quimby. There are parts that's owned by the state, parts that are owned by individuals, and the problem is, it's all been cut over. It's been cut. So it has no beauty. If you want some beauty in the northern woods, go to Baxter State Park. Now you'll see some beauty. And it's properly managed. The forest is properly managed. And all you gotta do is look around the United States of America and see where all the forest fires are and who owns the land.
Next question is from Bonnie Lundquist. Please address the status of the ferry terminal purchase and start of operation.
We sold the ferry terminal, the land, to Canada for $1. So I offered them $2 so they could double their money. They didn't take that. Right now, I understand that the deal is at about $3 million, and they're trying to negotiate it between the state of Maine and the entity in Canada that owns it. So it's moving ahead, but the Canadian government is no faster than the American government or the state of Maine. It's a very slow process, and it's happening.
We have a lot of young people in the audience tonight. Where is Sophie Dowling? Sophie, do you want to ask your question? Sophie is 13. She's from Cranberry Isles, right?
I'm very concerned about the environment for my generation. Do you support improving water quality in Maine's rivers?
I can't hear you, honey.
Sorry. I'm concerned about the environment for my generation. Do you support improving Maine water quality in the rivers?
Well, water quality in the rivers in the state of Maine has vastly improved over the last 20 years, mostly because of the paper mills, some of the regulations that were put on. Frankly, we have some of the cleanest water in America right now. Many states are looking to buy our water. I am all for what I said earlier, being a good steward of our land, but also provide jobs. Because a few years ago, state of Massachusetts, we got beat out for the best place in America to live. We did. We were number 2 to the state of Massachusetts. And there's only one category they beat us on. Per capita income. They were at close to 60,000, we were at 41. They were at 58,000, we were at 41. So what I'm saying is it's a balance of getting both. Do I think the air, the water in Maine is better than Massachusetts? You bet it is. But they have more money than we have. And we still beat them out for quality of life. So I am for a clean environment. People, I saw some heads shaking because I'm not ready to jump and make the Northern Woods a national park. I will tell you this, I go by this park all the time. And I also look at Baxter State Park. And from a forestry point of view, if you look at how many deadwood is lying in this forest and versus northern, the Baxter State Park, this is much more vulnerable to fires than Baxter, considerably more. So my point is a balance, is you gotta find a balance. I personally believe that all the deadwood in this park should be picked up because I've spent 25 years of my career in forestry, in the woods, and believe me, a dead tree is like a match. A dead tree hit by lightning is like an explosion. So This forest here, the park burnt, I think in about 1948. 47, okay. It was before I was born, see, it's a little old. But the point is, if you look at it now, it's not that far away again. It's getting to be mature. And it's getting to be, when you get a mature forest, it's like a garden. If you look at a forest, well, let me give you a story. Bob Labana was a commissioner of conservation back in the McKernan administration. He was also my boss when I was at Scott Paper Company. And he was a professional forester. And this is what I asked him. Bob, whatever possessed you to become a forester? He said, Paul, it's very simple. You can spend your whole working career as a forester and they'd never see your mistakes until the forest matures. Think about that. What I believe in is like a working forest. A forest where the wildlife is healthy. A forest where you do have the ability for people to use it, and if you have a park, if you make a national park up in Baxter State Park, no more snowmobile. Gone. Can't snowmobile. It's selective. You can't hunt. These are the things that make up a good, vibrant, working forest. So there's all kinds of reasons why I'm not for the national park up north.
I was just told to ask you tough questions, Governor. So I want
Bring 'em
to
on.
reassure everybody we're going to get through as many questions as we can tonight. And this one is from a group of 6th grade students from Connors Emerson School in Bar Harbor. They say that they're currently working on a project that revolves around the humanitarian crisis in Europe. Maine has a reputation of taking refugees in, as was the case with Sudan and Somalia a few years ago. We'd like to ask you, they have a few questions. What's your opinion on the humanitarian crisis in Europe? And if you were president, what would you do about the refugees?
I don't have a problem with refugees. I'm all for primary and secondary refugees. I have no problem. In fact, I work with them all the time. I meet with the Somali folks. I meet with the Sudanese folks. I have no problem. A refugee is here legally. A refugee has gone to the hospital before they left their country, and they get a medical assessment, so when they land here, we know the baseline of their medical health. Where I have a problem is with illegals. If you don't think they're illegal, then let's change the law and make them all open the borders. My issue is not whether or not they're welcome or not welcome. I adopted a young man from Jamaica because his family was really poor, and his dad asked me to adopt him. So we brought him here. It's not about helping people. It's about doing it legally. When we brought him here, it cost me $80,000. These folks that jump the fence that come over, we have no medical history. They're taking resources, and nobody's paying. Now, if you want that as a nation, I'm fine. Change the law. But don't make me take an oath of office to enforce the Constitution and the laws of the United States, the Constitution and the laws of the state of Maine, and then allow the rule of law to be thrown out the window. That's the problem. If you change the law, I will abide by it, because a governor implements the laws that are passed by Congress and by the legislature.
David Bowden, where are you? Raise your hand. Bowden? You just left. Okay. Well, sir, you said you had a question, right? What's your name?
Rick Sanner, Salisbury Cove.
What's your question?
Governor LePage, good evening.
Could you speak up just a little bit? I'm
Governor
an old man
LePage,
with bad hearing.
good evening.
Thank
I
you.
also have somewhat deaf in one ear, I can't hear out the other, and mostly stuff it in between. As such, I'm one of your young entrepreneurs. I've been to the bank. I've worked for many years in this community. We all know what kind of a winter we had last winter. I didn't work for 5 months. I went to the bank before I missed any payments. I said I have issues at home and I have issues here, and I hope to be working soon, and I will be working soon. As a matter of fact, I was working soon after that. Can you help me? It's supposed to be when I joined that bank, it was actually a local bank.
The answer to your question is absolutely. We can help you in two ways. One, we can,
I haven't asked my question yet.
oh, okay.
I was talking about the bank, what I said to the
Okay.
bank.
Sorry.
When I went to the bank, they took it as an opportunity, instead of to actually help me, to help themselves, to increase what they were able to get from me, both in the arena of collateral and in the cost of what they had loaned to me. I called the Bureau of Financial Institutions in Augusta.
Mhm.
Said, what can you do to help me? They said, well, as a matter of fact, commercial banking is virtually unregulated in here. What happened was, we are a low-income household. What happened was, we found out that they were after us seriously because they went into a bank account that is shared with the mother of my children. She had just put her paycheck in there to buy groceries because food aid doesn't cover it all, and we're trying to get off that. They took 100% of what she had put in without notifying us. She ran down to the bank, put a little more money in because she thought maybe she had screwed something up in the checkbook. Well, that was gone too. Then the next day they let us know. There's no such thing as an innocent spouse rule in this state. My kids would have that food money if there was. How do you expect the low-income employees and workers and entrepreneurs in this state to get a leg up if that kind of activity goes on in here? How do you expect the people around me, and I'm not talking about me, that realize they are gonna have trouble making it through this winter, so they go out and buy groceries at 24% on a credit card, and you're letting these out-of-state companies offer that? They
Well-
make it easy.
well, excuse me right
They give
there.
it out easily, they don't give it back easily. Can you help us with that?
Well, first of all, I will say this. I don't know why they took your money. The only way they can take money is if you indebted to them and they took.
my money, they took her money.
Well, I'd have to have more specifics, but I will tell you, can I help you? I can certainly get John Butera, our economic development person, who deals with the business issues, and talk to the commissioner and see what the rules are. But I will say this, you said something that I do know is not correct, is there's no ability in the state of Maine to charge above 18% on a credit card. I would love to see it much lower, but that's the law in the state of Maine, it's not over 18%. Now, as far as the bank rules, if you have a suggestion, I'm all in. I don't know what happened, I don't know the specifics, but I'm not aware that the bank could take, is it your wife or is it the mother? If it's the mother of your children and she's not your wife, I don't see how they got to that money, unless it was joint.
Because we share an account.
Wow.
Because we share an account to pay household bills.
Yeah.
It's called
What?
the innocent spouse rule, and it applies on income tax from the federal level. It protects somebody in the household who has nothing to do with something someone else is doing in the household, which is the case here, from having this sort of thing happen.
Well, I tell you what I would do if I were you. The first thing I would tell you is get to your legislator or your senator and ask him to put a bill in that would meet your needs relative to the household. I have no problem with that. First of all, I am all in for protecting the kids of any household.
And I did give him, the commissioner of DECD, our Department of Economic and Community Development, his card. You can catch up with him, and we will see what we can do.
We have legislators here. How many legislators here?
Do we have any legislators here?
Right here.
Raise your hand. Stand up.
Representative
Stand
Hubbard's
up.
right here. You
There we
speak to
go.
him, he can sponsor a bill. Is there any other legislators here?
Any other legislators?
Thank you for coming.
I may get this name I may mispronounce it, Shelley McLaughlin.
Sheila, way out back there.
It's spelled S-H-E-L-A-G-H. Sheila. Where is it?
Okay.
Perfect. Stand up and come right up. Where are you from?
Ah, Bar Harbor. I think you have it, hopefully. So if I teach at the high school, so if you spoke to a 10th grader, what would you tell them you were doing to prepare them to influence government and work for the common good?
If I was a 10th grader,
Or if you were speaking to a 10th grader.
I would tell them, if I was speaking to a 10th grader right now, I would tell them to soak up every bit of knowledge that's made available to you, because you're gonna need it. This is gonna be tougher and tougher. And for all you young people here, I will say this. I'm on the majority end of my tenure in life. I'm the old guy here. And I working as a governor for one reason. It's for my kids and my family. I want them to experience the American dream the way I did. I was very fortunate, was born dirt poor and was able to achieve becoming a governor, which is not the biggest achievement I've ever done, but it's up there with the best. The best achievement was marrying my wife and having kids. But what I will tell you is this: you need to get as much knowledge as you possibly can. Education is your only way out in this world. And I say that because you're living in a country that has an 18 trillion T with $1 trillion debt that I'm not going to live long enough to pay, but you people are going to be paying it, whether you like it or not. And so that is why when I talk about lowering the income tax, it's for basically for the young people. Because right now, it may seem like the federal government's in control. If just as recent as last month, when the Federal Reserve met and they talked about, they were considering raising the interest rates, and they backed off again for another month, that is very, very crucial to you. Because there's only so much money the federal government has. The entitlements in this country make up a very sizable percentage of our budget. Then the military, which is their primary responsibility, according to our Constitution. And then there's the interest they pay on debt. Once that interest rate goes up, they have to pay the interest on the debt. And that means that you're going to have to share in paying that. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars per citizen in the United States. So I urge you to get the best possible education you can, get the best work skills you can, and just go at it, because you're going to be asked to contribute and you don't have much choice about it.
What's your name?
Natasha. I have a question. Are you aware of the rise of heroin use in Maine, and what are you doing to ameliorate this?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Sorry, I have a stuffy nose. Are you aware of the rise of heroin use in Maine, and what are you doing to ameliorate this problem?
Okay, am I aware of it? I live it every day. I have, since I've been governor, every session, whether you want to agree or disagree, we have spent, last year we spent $76 million on heroin and opiate treatments. I have been asking the legislature for 5 years now to give me more drug agents, to give me more law enforcement people, more judges and more DAs, to get not the drug addicts, folks. The drug addicts, we'll take them and we'll get them treatment. We need to get the traffic curtailed. We need to get the guys from, and the men and women from Pennsylvania, New York, Connecticut, Michigan, off the streets. We get them off the streets because these people are not users. These people are business people. They're trying to soak you in and addict you. And it's a real sad state of affairs because we are approaching one person dying a day, 3 babies are being born every single day addicted to opiates. And young lady out there going like this, you can smile, but it could be your child.
Governor, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up your drug summit too. You held one of those, and there is follow-up on it. We are having subcommittees meet with the U.S. Attorney General on this very issue.
We have all kinds of programs going. The problem in the state of Maine is the legislature in the state of Maine, the 186 people whom you've elected, have turned their backs on heroin. It's that simple. They're not putting money up for education, and they're not putting money up for law enforcement. They just put money up in Narcan to keep people doing it over and over and over again. Not going to solve the problem. You're just going to kill our kids.
This week, you'll actually be hearing from the U.S. Attorney General on this issue and the Department of Public Safety Commissioner.
Now, let him respond.
Would you like to?
Go right ahead. He hasn't given me the money.
Thank you very much. I beg to disagree slightly with respect, Governor. We did actually increase the money both for treatment and law enforcement in the current budget.
2 people. 2 people. We asked for 22, you gave us 2. That's chunk change. I'm sorry, Representative. That is a cop-out. We need people.
Please.
We need people to stop the people coming up in truckloads of heroin around the state. Ma'am, I'm sorry. You want to say more? You gave us 2 people.
We have time for a couple more questions.
No, let him answer. Let him answer.
Would you like
Let him answer that we got 2 people.
Come on, we'll get your answer. Absolutely. I agree. Would you like to respond? All right, he's all set, Governor,
Okay.
so we'll move on. Barbara Myers, she has a question. She says, in this area, we find that the environment and the park is the key to economic prosperity. Why the holdup with Land for Maine's future?
Very simple. It's very, very simple, folks. The Maine Heritage Trust has $186 million of land they've taken off the tax rolls, and so the communities don't get the taxes. Then they came to the state and they asked us to sell bonds to buy the land. I'm all set with that. I'm all set with that. But I asked them, and I asked this legislature to give me $5 million so I could help the people in the rural areas of the state to fix their heating systems so that we can lower the cost of their heating in the winter months, and they said no. That's why.
And our last question, how can your administration help our University of Maine system raise its retention rate of students? That's from Wendy Compson of Bar Harbor.
I'll tell you, I've been working with the university. The university has done some things good and some things bad. We have a new chancellor who's done what I think a very good job in the short period of time that he's been as the chancellor. One of the things that the university has not done, that schools like the University of New England has done, Husson has done, Thomas has done, is they recruit outside of the state of Maine and they recruit internationally. They are now starting to do that under the Chancellor LePage, and he's done a very good job. He's consolidating a lot of the systems, the administrative costs of the university to try to lower the cost. They have a 10-year plan moving forward. I am very encouraged by the leadership that he's giving the university. We have some extreme deferred maintenance in the state. I gave the legislature a 10-year capital budget for the next several years on fixing the university, our roads, our bridges, fixing public buildings. It didn't get anywhere. You know, people say it's the governor. The governor does an awful lot, whether it's me or anybody else. A governor will do an awful lot with limited resources. He asks the legislature. Unfortunately, we have a legislature that has not been very good in a part of leadership. The problem is I'm not willing to join the good old boy Christmas club and give a lot of fat and earmarks around the state. I have it and I won't. Now, people could say I'm adversarial, I'm tough. I am. I'm a tough negotiator. In Portland, we had a building in Portland. We were paying $29 a square foot for like 200,000 square feet to house the Department of Health and Human Services. We went in, we said, this is way too much rent, we gotta lower it. He said, not only am I not gonna lower it, I'm going to $32 with the renewed lease. I said, it's too much money. So we moved. I'm sure you've all read it in the newspaper. We went from Portland to South Portland. We got a 30-year lease. In 30 years, with a brand new building, in 30 years from last year, we are gonna be paying $2 a square foot less than we were paying in 2013. Now, is that a good business deal? Yes. Does it meet all of your liking? No. But I had to fight the House and the Senate because they didn't want to do it. Because, why? Because all the votes are out of Portland. It's the biggest county. When I brought the liquor business back in-house, it was leased out 10 years ago for $100 million. I brought it back in. The first year we made $49 million. I paid off the hospital $750 million without increasing your taxes. In fact, I lowered your taxes. And we paid off the hospitals. Didn't have any help from the legislature. They fought me all the way. In fact, what we ended up doing is tied the liquor contract to the payment of the bonds so that we could get a better interest rate. So I work every single day for Maine people. Is it popular? No. But if I wanted to get popular, I'd have become a legislator, because that's what you're there for. And the other thing, if I needed love, I'd get another dog. When I became governor, I had one dog. Now I have 3, because I'm not there to be loved. I'm there to do the job of the Maine people, lower your taxes, lower the cost of energy, lower the cost of higher education, and fix welfare. And that's what I intend to do. Now, like I said, it doesn't make any difference whether you agree or disagree. The point that I'm here for is to tell you what's going on. Now, I will say this, we did get 2 law enforcement agents, and we got 2 judges. We asked for 8 judges, 22 DAs, and 14 DEAs, and we got 4. Folks, Portland alone, the city of Portland needs another 4 DEA agents today. What people don't realize, when you go law enforcement against drug dealers, you got to go undercover. And if you've only got 4 or 5 people, they get recognized very quickly, and the gig is over. So you need a lot more people. We work with the counties, we work in local law enforcement, we try to do the best we can. But when you spend $76 million in rehab, $3 million in law enforcement, and we asked for judges, they gave us 2, and they gave us 2 clerks because they need a staff. So we are doing it with far less people than we should. This is a chronic problem. The state of Maine, 14,000 people die in the state of Maine every year. 12,000 babies are born. Out of the 12,000 babies, 750 are born with either intellectual disabilities, physical disabilities, or some medical problems. Some are rare diseases, and it prohibits them from being at the highest potential. They're going to contribute, but not to the same extent as most. Then we have 1,000 babies being born addicted or affected by opiates. We don't really know the total impact of it now, because some of them are just starting school, and there are very big special needs for some of them. So it's imperative that we as a state fight against these guys coming up from out of state. Just recently, there was one man, 31-year-old, his name is Smooth, came out of Connecticut. He was selling in Bangor and up in this region. And when we got him, we got 5 traffickers. Just this week, or I guess late last week, a major bus from the federal government in the state of Connecticut, in New Haven, took not only drug addicts off the streets, took murderers off the streets, because these people were killing people in drug wars. So the drug issue, believe me, if I could snap my fingers and make it go away, I would do it. It is a massive problem that's going to take a whole lot of people like yourselves to help us, because there's just not enough resources to go after the guys that sell it, because it's so lucrative. And when I say to sell it, this guy's Smooth, he's not a drug addict, he's just a businessman. He sells it to addicts who sell it to their friends, and that's how it gets around. So any help you can give is welcome. Now, and in closing, I'll say this. Next year, there's going to be an issue on the ballot about legalizing marijuana. People say, oh, it's just for entertainment purposes. Well, this is what I was reading today in the Washington Examiner, that deaths on the highways in Colorado are up 19% since we legalized marijuana. Kids between the ages of 12 and 17, 6.2% of the state children were on marijuana between 12 and 17. That is up to 11.6%. So, I don't know much about drugs, and the only thing I don't understand about marijuana is we want to take cigarettes off the streets, but we're going to convert to marijuana. It doesn't make sense. I don't see how it's good for your lungs, but the point being, it is a gateway drug. Every clinician, every law enforcement people will tell you it is a. It is. Why are all the percentages going up? I know a very good friend of mine who has 2 daughters. He brought up his daughters to smoke marijuana. Not a problem. It's recreational. One is fine. One is on heroin.
There you go. Correlation does not prove causation.
Sir, do you have a minute to talk about Women's Health Initiative?
Women's Health Initiative?
Health Initiative?
Sure.
Would you like to read it?
Yes, please. What action do you plan to take in order to ensure young women in Maine like myself that we will be provided with affordable and easily accessible health care?
You mean affordable?
And easily accessible.
Yeah, the exchange. You can get insurance on the exchange. If
Well,
you,
I'm sorry, but you devoted the bipartisan Women's Health Care Initiative denying family planning and preventative health services to 13,700 low-income women in Maine.
I did what now?
Veto, sir.
Oh, yeah, I vetoed some bills. Ma'am, I'll tell you this. I did veto some bills.
13,000 low-income women.
Okay, what, I'm not giving them
Let him
abortions? Is that the issue?
Women's health care, not abortions. None of that money funded abortions.
Well, wait a
You
second.
also
I don't
know
understand.
that would
Ma'am.
Let her finish the question, please.
Well, I'm trying to hear her too.
I'm sorry.
Let me just ask you this. Is the issue that I vetoed a bill that would have funded 13,000 people with health care?
Yes.
Okay, I don't remember doing that. What bill was it?
The Women's Health Initiative.
What was the number of it? What was it?
We
what
don't
was it
have that
called
information on
exactly?
hand, but it was called the Women's Health Initiative. I don't expect that you remember the number or the kind of bill of all the 182 bills that you vetoed during your tenure as president. Which was
I wasn't president, thank you.
governor of the state, which is far more than any other governor in the history of the state.
That is correct.
Yes. So why would you have asked that we remember the name of one particular bill?
Because you brought it up.
Funding to 13,700 women. It was called the Women's women's
Yes,
health.
sir, you brought it up.
We can guarantee that there's a veto message
$400,000 in
on,
grants for the State Family Planning Association of Maine. You vetoed a bill that would have expanded Maine care coverage of birth control and preventative care like annual breast and cervical cancer exams for about 14,000 women earning less than $23,000 a year. that
Totally
would not have
incorrect.
funded abortions.
Sir, I'm
All right,
sorry.
are
you're
you
incorrect.
finished?
Now,
Are you
let me,
finished?
can I answer now?
but there are veto messages.
There are veto messages to every single bill that I vetoed, all 182 this past session. I will say one,
Would you let him speak?
sir, yeah, if, I will look into it. I'd be more than happy to look into it, get your name and number, and I will get back to
Did you
you.
read the bill when you vetoed it, sir?
I read every bill. In
Then
fact,
why would
I'm-
you need to look into it?
because there's
You just said you can't
2,600 bills
remember
a
every
session.
single bill.
Because every session, there's 2,600 bills. Since there's been over 10,000 bills since 2011. And sir, I'd have to know the bill and pull it and read it and see why I vetoed it. That's all. Be more than happy to do that. Now, I will say this, when it comes to family, women's health, I'm all in. Go to the exchange, register, you can pay anywhere from $1.75 to $20 a month. Are you suggesting that it be free, or are you suggesting that you're willing to pay for it?
No, I'm asking why you vetoed a bill that funded really critical health care, and you're asking me if I'm saying, should you have funded abortions? That wasn't the question. I'm asking why you.
What's the only bill I ever, I don't know.
That was not abortion.
All right, we're gonna cut things off
Okay.
at this point, Governor.
Get his number, and I will be more than happy to look at the bill and to give him an answer.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out.
Good
tonight.
luck,
We
folks, that ain't
appreciate it.
gonna happen.